Soul's Edge. Episode 8, What We Carry. Chapter 1. Soon. 2 cups of coffee in my hands and the records nook in front of me. The wall display is on standby because Cross has been working off the side screen all night. The side screen is angled away from the door, deliberately. He is reading something he has not volunteered. He has been in that chair since yesterday evening. I do not think he has slept. I think he has done the thing tired men do when they are trying not to think. He has stayed in the same chair so his body remembers where he is. I set the second cup at his elbow. He registers it the way a man registers a hand on a shoulder he was already expecting. He does not look up. Harlan.
Morning.
Sleep at all?
A little.
I walk the room slow. There is a particular way of walking a room I have learned over the years on this ship. The kind of walking that is cover for the looking. The loop you trace around the chairs and the bulkhead and the standing display lets you take inventory of what someone has been doing in here without standing over their shoulder to take it. I have not made a study of it. I have just done it long enough that I am, by now, fluent. The side screen is angled away. The wall display is dark. The terminal port is warm to the touch when I pass it. He has been pulling files into a queue he has not played. Through the command archive?
Most of it.
Anything I should be reading? He has been waiting for this question. I have learned to read Cross at the level of breath now, and not at the level of word. The breath comes first. The breath this morning is a breath he prepared in the chair sometime around 3. He has decided what to do with the question. He sets the answer down very carefully, exactly where he wanted it.
Soon.
Soon is the placeholder Cross has been handing me when I ask the question we both know the shape of. The question is, who killed the 45 people on that station? The placeholder is a word that looks like an answer if you do not hold it up to the light. Cross is not lying. He has never once lied to me. He is doing what a careful man does when he has the dangerous thing in his hand and is not yet ready to set it on the table. He is holding it. He is telling me he is holding it. The word means he intends to hand it over when he is ready. For 2 days I have taken the word the same way every time. I have nodded each time, moved on each time, let it do its work in the room, which is to keep the room in the shape Cross wants it in. I have been calling that respect. It is starting to look more like habit. So this morning, I do something I have not done with the word yet. I let it lie on the floor where Cross dropped it. I do not pick it up. I do not nod past it. I hold at the wall display a beat longer than the conversation requires, and I look at him, present, not pressing, just looking, until he meets the look. Neither of us moves the moment anywhere. I'm not asking the question again. I'm letting him see that I noticed the word. He sees it. The line of his shoulders changes a 1/4 inch. Not much. Enough. I pick up my coffee and leave the nook without saying anything else. Cross knows I noticed the word. He knows I noticed that he noticed. The conversation we are about to have has started, and it has not yet reached the room. Chapter 2. The Calypso. Mid-morning, ship time. The cockpit at Coast Cycle does a particular kind of quiet that I have come to think of as the ship's resting voice. Systems on standby, fans low, the slow trim adjustments the autopilot makes against drift, all of it audible only because there is nothing else in the room to cover it. Saya is at navigation reading coast data she has read twice. Tomas is in the hatchway behind me with a coffee he is not drinking. I am running the morning system checks I could run asleep, and have more than once. The 3 of us in habitual posture. The cockpit is a room we have inhabited together long enough that we no longer have to talk to know what each other is doing. Saya scrolling, Tomas listening to the fans. Me at the helm with the check rolling green across the secondary. A telltale on the main display moves from dim to lit. Channel open. Inbound. No tone, no alert. The indicator just brightens. Saya sees it the same instant I do.
Incoming. Public channel. SDC identification.
Tomas sets his coffee on a bulkhead shelf and does not pick it back up. Put it on the main. Tanaka's voice arrives clean. No processing, no static, no compression. The SDC could afford the bandwidth to make the transmission sound the way the SDC sounds in person, which is to say like nothing in particular. Like the room you walked into yesterday and the room you will walk into tomorrow. The text of the message rolls across the cockpit display in plain civil typeface as he speaks it. He is reading from a script he wrote with the slowness of a man who knew it would be played back on every belt channel that monitors SDC frequencies.
SDC Frigate Calypso to civilian vessel Meridian Fault, transmitting on open channel. This is Admiral Kenji Tanaka, commanding. We read you at constant heading on a belt coast trajectory consistent with no filed flight plan. Per Sol Defense Cooperative Standing Order on non-filed civilian operations in restricted research sectors, we request flight plan disclosure at your earliest convenience. Acknowledge within 12 hours, civil register, on the record. Calypso out.
The cockpit gives the transmission the long count after. Nobody speaks. Saya's hand is on the console where it landed when the indicator lit, and has not moved. I am looking at the text on the cockpit display where Tanaka's words sit posted, as if they need a witness. They do. They have 3.
12 hours is a long courtesy.
Long enough to mean something.
He is not asking for a flight plan. He is asking us to file the one we have not filed.
That is exactly the line. Saya has a way of reading what is on the page and what is between the lines as if they were the same sentence, and not bothering to distinguish the two, and a way of dropping the result on the table with no apparent investment in whether anyone wants to pick it up. She is right. Tanaka has not requested a flight plan. He has requested that we put a destination on the record. Kenji Tanaka served with my father on a belt survey before I was born. He has known me in some form since I was old enough to walk. He has watched me go through pilot training the way a man watches a son he is not allowed to claim. He has held me to a higher standard for it since. That is the brand of fairness Tanaka practices, which is the punishing brand. In my entire life, Tanaka has never once surprised me with what he decided to do. The surprise this morning is the timing. He called us before we could call him. That is a different Tanaka than the one I have known. The Tanaka I have known waits. He sets the conditions and lets the conditions do the work. The Tanaka who called us this morning has decided that the conditions need help. 20 minutes later, we are in the common room at the small round table that became Cross's seat in the day we made it through together yesterday. The recovered terminal sits dark on the wall display behind him. Cross has come down from the records nook with the look of a man who has accepted that his morning is no longer his. Amara is in from her research nook with a slate under her arm and the expression of someone who has done the math on Tanaka's 12 hours and not liked the answer. Tomas and Saya are standing. Tanaka has formally requested a flight plan. 12-hour window. I am filing one before it closes. I want to hear an objection if there is one in the room.
He knows we have been at the station.
He has known since the day after we arrived. That is not the question he is asking. He is asking us to put a destination on the record.
And we give him one.
We give him a true thing that does not commit us. Geological survey continuation. Belt coast vector. 20-day return estimate. Coordinates rounded to the nearest 10,000 kilometers. He will read it as evasive. He will be right. He will not be able to call it false. Nobody objects. The room goes quiet in the particular way a room goes quiet when everyone has heard the same sentence at once and has nothing to add. Saya is doing the math on what true and evasive buys us against a man who has been reading partial truths for 40 years. Amara is doing the math on what 12 hours of courtesy means against the math she has not finished. Cross is doing whatever Cross does when he sits with a sentence he agrees with. Tomas is watching me because Tomas is always watching me when a decision lands, and I have stopped pretending I do not know it. File it. Saya nods and is gone before the nod finishes. The others stay where they are. I look at them, the 3 of them with their separate weights. And I do not say what I am about to say to each of them today. I say a smaller thing. Thank you. Be available today. I leave. Amara watches me go. Tomas watches Amara watching. Cross stays at the small round table looking at the dark wall display. He has not threatened us. Tanaka does not threaten. He puts a hand on the wheel of a conversation already moving and, very gently, begins to steer. The hand is on the wheel now. Nobody on the fault was in the room when he reached for it. We can feel the steering anyway. Stay with me. 2 pressures are loaded now. A man in a records nook with an answer he will not hand over. A frigate on the open channel with a courtesy that is also a clock. Neither pressure is going to move loudly. They are going to sit side by side all day. while my crew and I do small, quiet things at the edges of them. The reason to keep watching is that everything that happens next happens in the shadow of what just happened in the cockpit, and the shadow is the whole episode. Chapter 3. The line. Early ship afternoon. Engineering. The compartment runs at coast cycle, which means the working light is up, the bulkhead panels are warm to the touch where the coolant loop runs behind them, and the main fan is loud enough that anyone who has spent 8 years in here knows when it shifts a quarter hertz off baseline. Tomas is at the coolant cycle regulator. The dial sits a quarter turn off where he set it at morning check, which means he has run the loop again. He runs things twice when he is waiting for something. He keeps his hands working so the waiting does not have his hands. The thing he is waiting for is a transmission from Europa that may or may not arrive. I have known Tomas Reyes long enough to know which variety of waiting this is. It is the waiting he does on the bench because he will not do it in his bunk. He does not turn when I enter. He has the weight of the footstep down by now. He knows it is me. How is the loop holding?
Aft runs a degree warm against forward. Normal on coast.
Lena? He finishes a quarter turn of the regulator before he answers. His hands are still doing the work while he prepares the sentence. The pause is the answer arriving before the words do.
5 days, as of this morning.
Want me to push a query on the relay?
No, she writes when she writes. A push makes it her father chasing her down. That is not what she needs from me right now.
I sit on the engineering bench across from his work. He is not looking at me. Every line of his back is listening. I've come down here to say one specific thing, and Tomas knows I've come down here to say one specific thing, and he's going to let me say it without watching my face while I do. Down here for one thing, saying it once. You're the one person on this ship I'm sure isn't holding back something I need. He sets the tool down, turns, leans against the bulkhead, arms loose at his sides. He gives the sentence the time he gives anything before he answers it, which is the same amount of time he gives a pressure reading or a torque spec. Exactly the amount the thing requires. No more, no less.
I tell you what would matter to you. I have things that wouldn't.
I know.
Is that the line you are drawing?
It is.
Draw it out loud, somewhere everyone can see where it sits.
Working on it.
Work faster.
He turns back to the regulator. I stay on the bench another beat, watching him work, and then I stand and walk out. He does not look up when I pass. Tomas does not say things he does not mean. He does not soften, pad, or repeat a thing once landed. When he tells you to work faster, the only honest answer is the obvious one. You have been working at exactly the pace you were working before he spoke. The speaking has just told you the pace was not enough. I have been late since the morning I pulled Cross out of the pod, by some measures, though I did not yet know I was. Late since yesterday, by every measure I do know now. What I have been doing instead is what captains do when they have a crew they like, which is to give the crew time. Time is a thing a captain gives when the captain has it to give. The frigate on the open channel has, this morning, taken time off the table. Tomas knows it. He has known it since the indicator on the cockpit display moved from dim to lit. He is telling me, in the only register he uses, that he expects me to know it too. I leave engineering. The corridor outside it is empty. I take the long way back to the cabin, so I have to walk past my own thinking on the way. Chapter 4. The bunk corridor. Habitation ring 3. Quiet light. The corridor at this hour runs on the lower of 2 lighting passes, and the ship treats it as half asleep, even though nobody on the fault is. Saya's bunk is the 3rd door down on the port side. The door is in the half-open civilian position, which on this ship means she is on duty and she is available. And the difference between those 2 states is one she keeps track of more carefully than anyone else on board. She is on her bunk with the day's nav data on a slate balanced against her knee. Work boots still on. She did not mean to be in here long. I take that in from the corridor. The boots, the posture, the way the slate is balanced rather than set down. And I know, before I do the thing I'm about to do, that she is going to read the doing of it correctly. I stop at the entry. I do not step in. I do not knock. I stand there. She looks up from the slate. She does not stand. She does not speak. I will tell you what is moving inside this silence, because the silence is the scene, and the screen cannot do this scene without me carrying it. There are no words in this exchange. There will be no words in this exchange. The exchange will, by the time it ends, be the longest silent moment between two people in any episode of this story, and it will end without either of us having made a sound. That is the point. What I am doing by standing in this doorway, I am letting Saya read that I have deliberately not asked her about the locked terminal at the station. I have known since the moment I saw her at the keypad that she was there to confirm a thing she already had. I have not asked what the thing is, how she came by it, or when. The not asking has, until this morning, been an accident I was calling a choice. This morning it is a choice I am calling a choice, and the difference between those two things lives in this doorway. What she is doing, by holding the look and not standing, she is letting me read that she has read me reading her. Saya knows I am deliberately not asking. She knows I am letting her see I am deliberately not asking. For 2 days she has known the not asking was no longer accidental. She is telling me, in the only register she has ever accepted from anyone, that she has known, and that she has known I have known. Neither of us has said any of this. Neither of us is going to say any of this. We are standing inside what we have agreed not to say, and we are letting each other see that the agreement is now mutual. The choice each of us has been making alone has, across this count, become a thing each of us is making together. The keeping is shared now. The work of moving from one to the other is what we have just done, in the doorway, without speaking. I nod once. I leave. She does not return the nod. She tracks me out without turning her head. The standing was the whole sentence. In the only register Saya accepts from anyone, it said, "I am done pretending there is no question here." She heard it the way she hears everything, which is to say clean. No qualifiers, no softening. We are keeping the same silence now, except it is shared. Whether she speaks first is no longer a question I am answering for her. I have stopped doing the asking without asking that has, for 2 years, been the shape of every conversation I've had with Saya Kato. That was the work of the doorway. The work is done. I walk away from it. Chapter 5. The Open Answer. Late ship afternoon. Amara's research nook, port side, 2 compartments aft of the cockpit. The wall display fills with the 31 sensor instrumentation map she ported across from the dead station before the fault disengaged. The network of passive arrays the station used to measure the signal at every point of itself. The readings laid out in a grid she has annotated in her own shorthand since yesterday morning. There is a cot in the corner of the nook with an indentation in the bedding where she slept 3 hours sometime around dawn. There is a cup at her elbow that was coffee at some earlier point in the day. I enter. She turns her chair without minimizing the screen. She is the only person aboard who does not flinch when someone arrives behind her work. She has nothing in the room to hide.
Sit. There is something I want to walk you through.
I sit. She walks me through it. I am not going to give you the physics, because the physics is not what this scene is about, and Amara is not what the physics is about either. What the physics is about in this scene is that Amara Osei has found the mathematical shape of what the signal does. She is months and not years from a paper she could publish if the politics allowed it. The politics do not. She is telling me about that decision the same way she is telling me about the framework. Openly. In the order she found it. At the precision she had when she found it.
I am writing it as if I will publish. I have not decided whether I will. That decision is not mine alone, and I do not want it to be. I want you to see the page before any of that happens.
Show me. She shows me. Several minutes of walkthrough, the wall display filling line by line with the framework she has built across 30 hours. She works the screen the way a teacher works a board, annotating, pointing, drawing the connections between her shorthand and the language she would have to translate it into for anyone she did not trust to read the shorthand directly. She is trusting me to read the shorthand directly. I cannot. I follow what I can. The shape of what she is showing me is clear enough. The signal does not propagate. The signal is present at every point of measurement simultaneously. The framework she is building describes that mathematically, and the math is consistent with itself, and the consistency is the part keeping her at the cot in the corner instead of in her own bunk. One passing reference, no more. The signal is still measurable inside the fault's hull. It has been measurable inside the hull since we brought it with us off the station coordinates, and it has not changed since. She notes the reading in passing the way a sailor notes the wind. She does not dwell. The scene does not dwell.
That is everything. That is what I think it means. 90% confidence in the math, 20 in the framework. The framework is mine and it is 30 hours old.
I take a breath. I have come in here with one question, and the question has been sitting in the back of my mouth the whole walkthrough. I ask it plain. Are you holding anything else, Amara? She considers it. The considering is not performed. I watch her actually run the question. The same way she would run a calibration check on a sensor she had not yet decided to trust, with the same care, the same speed, the same willingness to say what the running of it returned, regardless of what she had been hoping it would.
No.
I wait. Not for a different answer. Just leaving room for her to add anything she wants to add. She does not add anything. The no stands on its own, and the standing on its own is what makes it the right answer. Thank you.
That is the easiest answer I have given anyone in 3 weeks. I am thanking you for asking it, and I am not entirely sure why.
Because asking is the line. What the rest of us do with the line is the next conversation. She nods. She turns back to her screen. She does not turn the screen away from me as I leave. Amara has been the demonstration this whole episode. I have been letting myself treat her differently because she made it easy. This afternoon, I asked her the question I have not yet asked the others, and the answer came back the way an answer comes back when there is nothing in the room between the question and it. That is what the system looks like when it works. The system only works if I am willing to ask. I have not yet asked, in the register that matters, the one person on this ship I most need to ask. I will ask him tomorrow. 5 hours from now, I will know exactly when tomorrow starts. Chapter 6. Tomorrow. Ship evening. The common room runs at the lower of the evening lighting passes, and the small round table sits half lit, half in the soft glow off the galley counter behind us. Cross is at the table. He is eating slowly. The food more task than meal. He has been at the table an hour without playing anything from the dark wall display behind him. I get a plate from the galley and sit across from him. We eat a while without speaking. The room is arranged around the quiet. The hum of the fault on coast is low enough through the bulkheads that you can hear cutlery against ceramic and breath through nose. And we hear both. And we let both be the conversation while we work up to the conversation.
You are not asking me anything tonight.
Nope.
You are sitting with me anyway.
Easier than not. We keep eating. He finishes one thing, starts another, chewing slow while he thinks. The pacing of the meal is the pacing of the chapter. I am not in a hurry, and he is not in a hurry. And the not being in a hurry is the thing we are doing together, deliberately, before the thing we are about to do together. Harlan, you used the word soon 3 times yesterday and once this morning. I have been counting.
I know you have.
I am not asking what you know. I am asking when you tell me. He sets his fork down. He looks at me. He has been preparing for this. The way a man prepares for a sentence he will only get to say once. The look on his face is the look of a man who has rehearsed the sentence in the chair upstairs since 3 in the morning, who has decided that the version he rehearsed is the version he is going to use, and who is now going to use it.
Define when.
Define soon.
Tomorrow. 0500. Your cabin.
I sit with that. I do not look surprised. I am not surprised. What I am, looking at Harlan Cross across the small round table in the common room at ship evening, is a man whose long courtesy has just been answered exactly, in the same currency it was offered, with no change handed back. That is the part to mark. He did not soften it or bracket it. He offered me no wiggle room and asked for none. An hour. Tomorrow. My cabin. The whole price, on the table, all at once. All right.
Just you, the first hour. Then everyone, if you call them. I leave that to you.
Understood. We sit with it. He picks his fork back up. We finish the meal without another word. The food does what food does at a moment like this, which is to be the thing your hands have to do while the rest of you absorbs what your mouth just agreed to. When he stands to leave, he sets his hand briefly on my shoulder. It is the same gesture Tomas used on Cross's shoulder yesterday in this room. The small weight, the brief pressure, the hand lifted before either of you can do anything with the contact except register it. The gesture is being handed on. From the man who steadied Cross yesterday, through Cross to me. He does not say anything. He leaves. Cross has given me the morning. He does the hard things at the start of a day, not because he's brave with mornings, but because he has learned, across a long life, that the hard things will eat the day if you let them, and the only way to keep the day is to feed them first. He gave me 0500 because 0500 is when the day has not yet started to be the day. The cabin was so I would not have to come to him. The hour alone was so I could hear the worst of it by myself before deciding who else needed to hear it. That is what it cost Harlan Cross to say, "Tomorrow, 0500 your cabin," and that is the part I am going to keep. The sentence was 4 pieces of information. Underneath the 4 pieces was a 5th. I know what I am asking you to carry. I'm going to ask you to carry it the way I would carry it, which is at the start of the day, alone, in the room you sleep in, before anyone else has touched the day yet. I do not say any of that to him. He does not need any of it said. He is already in the corridor. Chapter 7. The Loaded Spring. Cross is out of frame. The shoulder touch lifts off, and he is gone before the lifting registers. I stay at the small round table. I do not eat anything more. I sit 10 seconds with both hands flat on the table, present in my own body in a way I have not been all day. The day has been a day spent at the edges of myself, watching the room, watching the doorway, watching how Cross's breath came before his word. I have not been in my own body since the cabin this morning. I am in it now. I find I do not mind. Cross comes to my cabin in the morning. He names a man. The crew will need something from me after he does. I do not yet know what it is. I find that out by sitting with not knowing. I stand, take my plate to the galley, walk the ship. Light step down for sleep cycle. Habitation Ring 2 is dark, except for the bulkhead nightline. The cockpit is on automated standby, the helm seat empty, the cockpit display in screensaver mode showing nothing in particular. Engineering still has a single bench lamp on under it. Tomas still works the regulator, because Tomas works when Tomas has things to work through. And tonight, Tomas has things. I do not stop. He hears me pass. He does not turn. We have already had today's conversation. We do not need a second. Habitation Ring 3. Saya's bunk door is closed now. No light beneath it. I do not stop there either. We had today's conversation in the doorway, and the doorway's closed, and we both know it. I will write something tomorrow. Tonight I sit with not having written it. The common room at Ship Deep Night. The small round table bare. Cross's chair pushed slightly back. The recovered terminal dark on the wall display behind it. One galley light left on. The coast hum sits low under everything, audible only because no one is in the room to cover it.
Declan, it is me. I am ready.
The door opens. I have not slept, and I am wearing yesterday's clothes, and I do not bother to pretend otherwise. Cross steps 1 pace into the cabin and stops where the carpet edge meets the floor plating, stopping there because his weight should not go further into another man's room than necessary. He looks at me for a moment that is not long and not short, long enough to take a breath, short enough that it is not a speech.
I will say the name. Then I will tell you why. What happens after that is yours.
Say it.
Senator Jane McAllister.
Hold there. That is the name. A name you have heard. A name I have heard. 20 years on news cycles, and I have never once stopped to weigh it the way I am weighing it now. Some people learn the shape of a name slowly, over years, and then a particular name lands inside a particular room, and the room rearranges itself around it. This is that moment. The cabin has not changed. The door is the same door. The name has become the door now. Chapter 1. I am ready. Tell me why. He tells me in a placed, unhurried cadence. A man who has learned that the facts of his life do not need help being heavy. He does not sit down. He does not ask if he can sit down. He stays inside the door because a conversation like this one does not get easier when you take it to a chair.
The Ardennes left Ceres in 2063. We were 9. We left to run down a structured signal I had found in the long-range arrays. Prime interval modulation, a pattern with a hand behind it. I had theory of my own going back 2 years before that, unpublished, that the signal seemed to answer. We were a survey ship chasing the most important thing any of us had ever seen.
He breathes once. I do not interrupt. I have wanted to interrupt for the entire ride out of Boreas, and the entire ride into the dead station, and the entire ride back out of it again. He is finally giving me the version of the story he is willing to tell out loud. And the right thing to do with the version a man has rehearsed inside his head for 42 years is to shut up and let him say it.
We reached the coordinates. We found what your crew found 4 days ago. The signal has no source we could triangulate and no direction we could measure. Our captain, Reza Mirzai, decided the finding had to survive whatever happened to the ship. He put me in a pod as the witness and ordered me to sleep. I did not see what came after. I have told you that, and it is still true.
He has told me that part 6 weeks ago on this ship. Mirzai's hand on his shoulder, the wardroom, the order he obeyed. The shape of the telling has not changed. The weight has. What he is adding now is what he saw on the desk before he slept.
What I did see, I saw before I slept. I was chief science officer. I filed our return packet myself. I knew every desk it was routed to, uniformed and civilian. The mission did not come home. It was erased, reclassified, sealed, the crew scattered. I have spent the time since I woke putting the chain back together. 4 months total of asking. The voyage with you. And the records I read on that dead station.
He pauses, breathes, and starts again. This is the part of the chain he has built since he woke up, the part I have not heard before.
One desk on that routing had standing authority over the cooperative, without wearing its uniform. Senator Jane McAllister, 45 years on the Senate Military Oversight Committee, 11 as its chair. No civilian alive has more reach into how the SDC classifies its files, disciplines its people, and moves supply at the depot level. She does not sign the orders herself. She does not have to. A senator chairing oversight calls a flag officer. The flag officer signs, and the classification carries the admiral's flag on the page. The signature on the Ardennes file was a flag officer's. The hand on the admiral was hers. The deaths on that station were administered through depot-level filtration stock. That reaches hers. It has been hers since before I went under.
I file what he has just told me. An accusation can have the shape of an opinion or the shape of a chain. Links you can count, links you can name, links you can put on a table and ask a man to walk along. He has handed me a chain. He has not handed me a verdict. He is the careful kind of furious, which is the only kind of furious that survives 42 years intact. Why now?
You asked me to define soon. And 2 days ago, I sat in a records bay and watched 45 people die through their own logs from a thing I have kept quiet about for 42 years. The quiet is done.
I take a long beat. He is watching me consider it. I have one clarifying question and only one, because the version of me that asks 10 of them at 0500 is the version of me Cross has been waiting 42 years not to have to convince. I do not insult the man. How certain are you? Her. And not a name on a routing list who never read past the header.
Certain enough to say it in this room, not certain enough to hand you a document. The documents are 42 years gone or sealed behind a lock on a dead station. What I have is the reasoning. Pressure tested. Bring me back what does not hold.
All right. I do not extend my hand. He has not asked me to perform one. The closest I will come to ceremony is to use his name when I thank him, which is a small ceremony I have used twice in my life and am about to use for the third time. Thank you, Harlan.
I will be in the common room whenever you want the rest of them.
Senator Jane McAllister. I almost said it out loud, in my own cabin, to nobody, just to hear what it sounded like in my mouth. I didn't. Some words you do not practice on yourself first. You let the first speaking of them be the speaking that counted, which was Cross's, 4 minutes ago, standing one pace inside my door at 0500. The vent cycles. The lights are still on their pre-shift low. The ship is on coast. A name I have heard for 20 years on news cycles is now a name I've heard in my cabin, and that is the difference between the news and your life. In your life, the names walk in and stand near you and ask what you intend to do. Chapter 2. The Walk. A captain does a particular thing after he has heard a name like that. He walks through his ship. He does not go anywhere in particular. He does not have a destination. He walks because the corridors are the part of the ship he can see. And after a sentence like the one I have just heard, he wants to verify something with his hands. A bulkhead, a hatch, a vent grill, a chair that is where he left it. The names live in the part of the ship he cannot see. The corridors are the part he can. I leave the cabin and turn left because turning left takes me past the cockpit, and the cockpit is where the lie I told yesterday lives. The nav board is running automated coast. The long, slow plot we filed with Tanaka. The partly true plan that gave him enough to acknowledge and not quite enough to ask the next question. He has not asked the next question yet. I look at the plot for a moment and find I have nothing to add to it. I move on. Engineering. Tomas is asleep. He has his head down on his folded arms at the bench he uses for the work he loves most. The small, careful work, connectors and shims. The fixes that never make a logbook entry. I stop in the hatchway and watch him sleep for a beat. A man has a posture he only assumes when nothing is wrong, and Tomas is in it. He looks 10 years younger than the man he is. I do not wake him. He has earned the version of himself that gets to sleep through it. The common room is empty. The long table is empty. The small round table where Cross has been sitting for the last few weeks is empty. The galley is dark behind the pass-through. Somewhere a thermal coil hums itself awake on a schedule no one set. I keep walking. Habitation ring 3. Saya's corridor. I stop a meter from her bunk door, facing forward. The door is half open. The civilian on duty position. Anyone passing could read it as a courtesy. The door says, "I am available." I have read that door 100 times in 2 years and never once stopped in front of it before. I knew she was awake before I reached the corridor, and I could not tell you how. Standing there for a count of 9 seconds, not looking in, not leaving, I was hearing 2 years of my own attention come back to me at once. Every shift handoff she ran on a beat I should have read. Every cup of coffee she did not pour. The seconds her eye held on the nav board past what the read required. 2 years of small reports my eyes have been filing for me without my permission. I walked away without knocking. Some doors you do not open because you have not earned the version of yourself that gets to be on the other side of them yet. I was about to earn it. I needed an hour first. I went back to my cabin and I sat down at the desk. I had a speech to write. Not the speech I had been holding in my head for 12 hours, but the speech that came before the speech. The version I needed to clear out of my throat so the version that mattered could come up clean behind it. You give yourself a draft in private so you do not give it in public, and I had been carrying this one since the table the night before. I wrote, then I read it back to myself, low, in the cabin, to hear how it sounded. A passenger is a person who is on the ship. A captain is responsible for it. A captain who tolerates information he cannot see is not flying the ship. He is a passenger with a uniform. I am done being a passenger. I looked at it for a while. It was a true thing. The sentences read clean. They were the version I would have written for an audience that was not in the room. The crew was going to be in the room. They did not need me to perform the principle to them. They needed me to say the line. I deleted the block. The slate went blank. I wrote again. The cabin lights stepped up through their morning cycle around me. Soft amber to the working white I prefer when I'm writing. And I wrote through the change without noticing. 6 drafts. I burned the first 5. The 5th would have played to a camera, and there was no camera at the table I was going to. There were going to be 4 people at that table, plus me. 4 people is a version that gets said, not performed. I set the slate down. I looked at the words I had left. I nodded once to no one and stood up. The walk was over. The cabin was the same cabin. The lights were on their working white. Somewhere in the corridor, the vent was still cycling, and I had stopped noticing it again. Which is the way you know a ship is yours. Chapter 3. From a different file. I went to the common room and I chose a table. The choice was deliberate. The small round table at the corner of the room has been Cross's for 50 days now. He has eaten at it, written at it, Sat with Amara at it, sat alone at it. The long table down the center of the room has been the crew's, and lately it has been nobody's, because the crew has been moving past each other in shifts without sitting down together. I sat at the long table. I picked the seat that faced the door from Habitation Ring 3. I made a cup of coffee and put it in front of me. I did not drink it. I was making myself findable. Two versions of being a captain. One is about command presence and the rest of the theater. The other is about being a man other people can locate without having to ask a third party where you are. I was being that second version. I had stood outside Saya's bunk for 9 seconds in the dark and walked away. The next move was hers. I was making sure the move had somewhere to land. The coffee cooled. I let it cool. The door from Habitation Ring 3 opened at 10:20. Saya came through it. She had not changed clothes. She crossed the common room at her own pace, did not look around, did not slow, did not stop until her hand was on the back of the chair across from mine. She sat. She put her own hands flat on the table, a small gesture and a precise one, a placement that meant she had come to be still while she talked. She did not preamble. She never does.
I want to tell you what I came to that station to confirm.
Tell me.
3 years ago, in SDC service, I was assigned the classification audit. The job was to verify that the set of buried Ardennes-era research files had been retired cleanly under standing policy. The files had been reflagged in 2102 by a civilian oversight office. My audit was meant to confirm the reflagging was procedurally sound. It was not. The override authority was a single name, signed across the whole file series, the same name on every signature line. I flagged the irregularity in my audit return. My return was buried inside 48 hours. My access was revoked. I was reassigned within the week.
Whose name?
Senator Jane McAllister.
I held it. What I felt was not surprise. Surprise arrives when a thing arrives you were not expecting. What I felt sitting across from Saya at the long common room table at 10:20 in the morning of day 50 was the opposite. It was the small clean click of a piece arriving in the place a piece had been shaped to arrive. Cross had given me the name at 0500. Saya was giving it to me again at 10:20. Two people who have never compared notes. Two rooms separated by years and corridors. One name between them. That is not a coincidence anymore. That is a chain you can put on a table. And the station.
The station is where the originals of those files are physically held, the records terminal in the commander's quarters. I went there to confirm one thing, that the lock was still good and nobody had been into them. The security protocol is intact. 42 years never breached. Whatever McAllister buried is still sealed where she left it. I did not open it. I did not need to. I have known what is in it since my audit.
How confident are you in the name?
Since the third signature page. More confident every year since. I did not sign on to this ship for Cross. Cross was still in a pod at Boreas when I came aboard. I signed on for the ship's registry. The Fault carries a buried tie to the Ardennes. The only civilian ship in the system that still does. McAllister buried that tie. I wanted to be near it. I did not tell you, because I did not know what you would do with it. I am telling you now, because yesterday you stood at my door for a count of 9 and did not ask. I do not require to be asked. I require to be seen.
I had no observational sentence for that line. No wry deflection, no Declan voice flourish around it. The most direct sentence Sayakato has said to me in 2 years deserves the only sentence of mine that fits. I see you. A beat. She nods once.
Then you have your second source.
Thank you, Saya. She stood up and walked out the same way she walked in. Straight line, no hurry, no looking around. The door from Habitation Ring 3 closed behind her. I sat at the long table with a cup of coffee I had not drunk and a coat of cold ringed around the rim where the steam had stopped lifting. 2 cups of coffee. Mine sitting in front of me, cold. The one I had not made for her, sitting on no table at all. Cross at 0500, Saya at 10:20. The same name landing in rooms that had never been the same room, in voices that had never compared notes. I did not sit at that table for very long. I sat at it long enough to let what had happened be real. One name, 2 sources. No contact between them. If you have been with this crew since the day a man came out of a cryopod at Boreas, stay in the room. The table is being set. Chapter 4. What the Ardennes Saw. I was not in the room for what comes next. The account is faithful to what Cross and Amara each described to me afterward, told in my own voice. A captain who waits for the surveillance footage to arrive is not paying attention to the people in front of him. Amara's research nook is the smallest pressurized volume on the ship and the one she has made the most herself. The wall display carries the instrumentation map from the station. 31 sensor positions, 3 calibration arcs, the propagation delay measurements that should have been there and were not. New notations have appeared on the equations overnight in her handwriting. Not many, careful ones. The cot in the corner is a cot in name only. She has been sleeping in the chair. Cross knocks once on the frame of the door and steps inside without waiting for the answer. He has the bearing of a man who has decided something. He does not ask if it is a good time.
I owe you an account. I am here to give it. May I sit?
Sit.
He sat forward, hands on his knees, settled in for a long telling. The posture meant, do not interrupt until I am done. Amara did not interrupt him. Amara is a researcher who does not interrupt during data. She filed everything he said somewhere behind her eyes and did not pick up the stylus.
The signal I found in the arrays did not behave the way a signal behaves. When the Ardennes reached its coordinates, our instruments confirmed why. The signal had no source we could triangulate and no direction we could measure. Every sensor read it at once, at the same strength, with no delay between any two of them. We checked it the way you have been checking it. We ruled out the artifact, the interference, the error in the mathematics. The result held.
He paused. She was very still. He went on.
A signal with no origin and no propagation is not a transmission. It is a property of the space it occupies. We did not have a framework for that in 2063. I am not certain the discipline has one now. What we had was a finding large enough that someone decided it could not be allowed to come home. So it did not. 42 years. 104 papers with my name on them, and not one of them touches the thing the Ardennes touched. The signal in this ship, the one you have been instrumenting since we left the station, is the same kind of thing. Different source, different magnitude, different waveform, the same physics. You are going to confirm what we confirmed only 42 years later with better instruments and a captain who will not stand down. I am giving you the head start I never had.
He stopped. He had not raised his voice once. He had not embellished. He told her the account in the smallest version it could be told and not lose the shape of what it was. The smallest version of the truth is a kind of generosity, when the man telling it has spent 42 years inside the larger version alone. Amara took a long beat. She has a particular way of waiting when something matters, a stillness that is not the stillness of being passive, but the stillness of running the equation through a second time to make sure her first answer was right. She ran it twice. She asked her one question.
One question, the finding. Was the source ever localized?
No.
That is what I was afraid of.
She did not look at her wall display. She did not look at her notes. She looked at Cross. Physicists do a particular thing when they have just been told a finding that rearranges the discipline. They go quiet inside their own faces and you watch the architecture move. I have watched Amara do it twice in my life. The first time was on Ganymede, 3 years before any of this, when she told me what the SETI consortium had concluded about silence and what it meant. The second time was secondhand, told to me later, in her nook on day 50.
Tell Declan you told me. Tell him I asked the question I asked. He will know what to do with it.
I will.
He stood, paused in the doorway, then turned back.
Thank you for listening, Amara. I have not said any of that out loud before.
I know.
He left. Amara sat at her console for 3 seconds without turning back to her instruments. She looked at the door he had walked through, and she let the equation finish running. The account was the account Amara had needed to receive in order to do the work she had been doing alone since the station. The physics had been there in front of her since the station. 31 sensors, 0 propagation delay. The calibration sweeps that all came back identical. She had been holding the conclusion at arm's length because the conclusion was too large to hold without a second pair of hands. Cross had now put his hands on the other end of it. The conclusion was still too large. It was no longer hers alone. That is what a finding becomes when two people have looked at it together. It becomes a shared weight. It is still heavy. It is no longer crushing. And the question she asked him, the one question, the localized question, was the question I would not have known to ask. That is the work. That is why she's at the console and I am at the helm, and Cross was at the door, and the chain has the shape it has. Chapter 5. Did she say it that way? The galley smelled like onion and broth, and the particular dark smoke a stainless pan throws off when it has been hot for an hour without anything in it but oil. Tomas was at the prep counter with a knife in his hand and a pile of carrots in 3 stages on the cutting board, whole, halved, diced. He has meant to make this stew since the dead station, and he has not had a slow enough afternoon to start it. He had decided that today was that afternoon. You know a man has accepted today as the day when he is already 2 onions in by the time you walk in. He did not look up when I came in. He kept chopping. The rhythm of his chopping is the rhythm of his thinking, and you do not interrupt either one. I stood in the galley door for a beat and then sat down at the small galley table, the one nobody else uses except him, and I waited for him to ask.
You want to chop or you want to talk?
Talk. He kept chopping. I started. I gave it to him in the shape it needed to be in for the shape of his afternoon. Short, ordered, no commentary, no qualifier. Cross came to my cabin at 0500. He gave me a name, Senator Jane McAllister, chair of the Senate committee that oversees the SDC. He has been carrying her name for 42 years. A beat. He kept chopping. I kept talking. Sci came to me at 1020. Different vector. A classification audit 3 years ago. The override authority on the buried files was a single signature. Same name. Tomas set the knife down. He turned, wiped his hands on the towel at his apron, looked at me. Full attention, with the focus he uses on a torque reading. He asked a question I had not braced for.
Did Saya say it the way she would say it if she were lying?
That question landed. It was not the one I had expected, and it was not the one I had thought to ask myself, because I had not thought of myself as the person whose answer to it would be the one that counted. Tomas was treating me as the man whose read of Saya was the read the ship would use. 2 minutes ago, I had been a man delivering a report. He had just made me the man whose answer was the report. I considered it. I considered it the way he was asking me to. Not fast. No.
Then you have it.
He picked up the knife and resumed. The carrots went on. The conversation, by his standards, was over. Tomas does not extend a conversation past the point at which the question has been answered. It is one of the things I admire about him, and one of the things I've been bad at imitating.
When are we meeting?
1 hour. Common room, all 5.
I will be there. Bring the stew or leave it.
Bring it. We eat at that table. He gave a small nod and kept chopping. I stood up, walked to the galley door, then stopped and turned back. I had one more thing to say to him before I left, and a captain who does not say the thing in the moment will not say it later. Tomas, thank you for the question you just asked me. I do not think I would have known to ask it on my own yet.
You would have. Eventually.
Eventually is not the same as today. He did not respond. He kept chopping. I left. Tomas just did something specific, and if I do not name it, you might read it as a man asking a simple question in a galley. The galley was just the room. What happened in it was the floor of the ship extending the captain his own authority. Tomas trusts Declan to weigh a crew member's truth-telling. He has just publicly, privately, but publicly to me, which is the audience that matters, decided that my read on Saya is the read he will use. He has handed me a piece of his judgment to use as my own. I have flown with him for 8 years, and he has never once handed me that piece before. He did not have to. The conditions on the ship had not required it. The conditions had changed. He had read the change before I had named it. He had handed me what I needed to do the job the change had asked me to do. He went back to his knife. That is the version of Tomas Reyes the show has been showing you all season without using the words for it. The words are these. He is the moral floor, and he has just raised his hand for the captain. I walked back toward the common room. There was an hour to go. There was a speech in my pocket on a slate I had stopped looking at because the words on it were words I had already memorized in the only way words like that get memorized, which is by writing them 6 times and burning 5. Chapter 6. The Speech. 5 people at the long table in the common room of the Meridian Fault at ship midday on day 50, with 5 empty bowls in front of them and a pot of Tomas's stew between them. None of us had served ourselves yet. Cross sat at the head of the table away from the corridor, hands folded in front of his bowl, settled with the ease of a man who has been at a lot of tables over a lot of years. I sat at the head opposite him, Tomas on my left, Amara on my right, Saya across from Tomas on Cross's left. I looked at each of them in turn. Tomas was already a quarter leaned over his bowl, ready to start, but he was not going to start until I said something. Amara had her hands folded in her lap with the formal placement she uses in rooms she takes seriously. Cross was still. Saya was reading the table, surface tension, who had placed what, whose hands were where. I had a slate in my pocket I was not going to take out. The words were in my mouth. I gave them. I'm not angry. I want to start there. I trust each of you completely. That is not the question. Here is the question. I am responsible for what happens to this ship. I am responsible for what happens to the people inside it. I make calls every day that depend on knowing what is on the ship, what is in the cargo, what is in the systems, what is in the people. The cargo and the systems I can inspect. The people I have to take on what they tell me. If you carry something that is yours, your past, your grief, your reasons for being here, that is yours. I have no claim on it. I want none. If you carry something the ship cannot afford to learn about too late, that is mine. Not because I'm entitled to it, because the helm is in my hand, and I am the one who flies us into whatever you are not telling me. I am not asking you to confess. I am telling you what the line is. Everything operationally relevant. You tell me. Everything else, keep, if you need to keep it. This morning, Cross told me a name. Saya told me the same name from a different file. I am not going to ask either of them why they did not tell me sooner. I am telling all of you. Do not let me find out next time from someone else. Do not let me find out next time from a frigate. Hold. Nobody moved. I had finished, and the room was still in the shape it had been in when I started, which is the shape a room takes when the people in it have agreed in advance that they are going to listen all the way through. Some speeches you have to fight the room for. Others, the room comes to you ready. This was the second kind. Cross did the work that bought it, and Saya did the work that bought it from a different room. Tomas asked the question that pulled it across the floor. Amara received the account that gave it shape. And I stood 9 seconds outside a door without knocking, and that bought it too. I watched their faces. Tomas studying his stew, Amara's eyes on me. Crosses not lifted from me since I started, Saya watching the center line of the table. The room had not rearranged itself yet around what I had said. The rearrangement was about to happen, and it was going to happen the way it always happens. Slowly, one person at a time, in the order the room had already chosen for itself without anyone having to be told. Chapter 7. 4 responses. Tomas spoke first. He had not put his spoon down. He was still half leaned over his bowl, and he spoke the line into the bowl as much as into the room.
You have it from me.
He went back to the stew. The smallness of it was the point. The moral floor does not perform. It commits and goes back to the work because the work is the proof of the commitment. If you missed it, that was Tomas Reyes lining up behind his captain for the first time in 8 years on a record that anyone in the room would remember, and he did it in 5 syllables and then took a spoonful of stew. Amara was next. She straightened slightly. Her hands came up from her lap to the table, folded on top of each other in the formal placement she had been holding before I spoke.
Agreed. I will flag anything I am uncertain about ahead of time, even if I think it is nothing.
A beat. She nodded once at me. She did not look at the others. She is not a woman who looks at others when she is committing to a captain. She looks at the captain. The commitment was a researcher's commitment, a procedural one, a protocol, but you do not mistake the form for the weight. Amara had just changed the operating procedure of the science she did on my ship, in a sentence, in front of 4 witnesses. That is the form her loyalty takes. I have not always known how to read it. I read it that morning. Then Cross. He sat back, hands flat on the table, open palms, fingers spread, the gesture of a man putting his cards down.
I have been quiet for a long time. I will not be quiet on your ship.
A beat. He looked at me and held it. I looked back. We had said a version of this to each other twice in 12 hours now. Once at the cabin door at 0500, once here at the table in front of the others. The second time was for the rest of the crew to witness and to ratify and to take into themselves as part of the record of this ship. Serialized. I cannot tell you what came next without telling you about the silence before it. So let the silence have its full count. The room held. Tomas kept his hands on his bowl. Amara kept her hands on the table. Cross kept his palms flat. I kept my eyes on Saya because she had earned a captain looking at her. And the version of me that looked away because the moment was uncomfortable was a version I was not going to be anymore.
I heard the question. You will not have to ask me again.
The room sat with the line. So did I. It is the most Sayakato has committed to anyone since she came aboard. She has only been aboard 2 years. I heard the question. You will not have to ask me again. The room knew. She knew the room knew. I did not respond, because responding to a line like that with the line of your own is the way you take it away from her. And a captain who knows what the moment is does not take it away. Tomas lowered his spoon into his bowl. A small movement. A deliberately ordinary one. It released the room. The stew began. The bowls began to fill. The conversation moved without me having to move it. The moment was not the speech. The moment was the spoon. Chapter 8. Sleep. Cross gave the account again. The third telling. The first two had been for me and for Amara. This one was for the room. Amara was watching for the moment the picture clicked behind the other's eyes. Saya ran Cross's account against her own, finding the joints. The place his memory of a routing list met her memory of a signature page. Tomas listened with the level patience he gives an apprentice explaining a fix, ready to catch the mistake if it came, and ready to nod if it did not. Cross told it as he had told it to me, and as he had told it to Amara. Placed, unhurried, no weight spent on drama. The weight did not need help. I watched my crew. They were getting the picture together. Each of them had carried a piece of it for weeks, or months, or years, or decades, and they were finally setting the pieces next to each other on the same long table in the same room at the same hour. The picture had a name on it. The name was Senator Jane McAllister, and the room had known it for 40 minutes already, and the room was still settling around the weight of it. Cross's voice carried the murmur. The bowls emptied slowly, and the stew was very good. I did not need to be anywhere else. That was the strange part. A captain, on a ship, in the middle of a season's worth of withholdings, finally being aired around a table, and the place he needed to be was the place he was. I am going to remember that. I am going to remember day 50 by the place I needed to be on it. I went back to my cabin. The lights were on their evening low. I sat at the desk. I turned the recording device on. We are still not friends. We did not become friends tonight. We became a crew. I have been the captain of this ship for 8 years, and this is the first night I have flown her with my crew, instead of for them. I do not know what we are going to do with what we now know. I know we are going to do it together. For the first time in 50 days, I am going to sleep.